All right, it's a new day, working on the love truck, and today's video is going to be about figuring out the steering and figuring out what all I have to cut out to make the steering work. So right now, where I had the pedals at, it was really close with the steering shafts being like basically overlapping with the clutch pedal. So I think that I'm gonna move where I'm mounting the pedals back and down a little bit, still giving me plenty of leg room, and then figure out all of the angles and teach you guys how to make sure, using U-joints, how to keep your steering good, you know, and not be like wonky and feel clunky or anything while using a manual rack. So yeah, I guess I will do a time lapse right now of figuring everything out, cutting stuff out, and we'll go from there. I don't know what this video is really going to be about. I think it's just going to be this. Might be short, might be long, might throw something else in. I don't know. I'm also working on another video right now of tearing apart a 5.3, and yeah, so I guess let's get to it. So I got the pedals all mocked up where I think about where they need to be. I want to put the seat in and then see how my legroom is. But the main problem of all this is that I'm running into issues with the steering shafts running into the clutch pedal and not being able to be routed well. So the first thing that Mike had mentioned when I was showing him all this was he thinks that I should shorten up this to about here, because then it won't be all the way, it won't be as far over to the left and have to have such a wonky angle, because U-joints, steering U-joints need to be between 30 and 35 degrees, or else it's just too much and they won't work, or they'll bind. So whatever one U-joint is, you want to try to make the other one the same or really close, so that you don't get any issues like with steering. You know, it won't feel notchy or like clunky or anything. So trim down some wooden dowel like this. It's like $11 from Home Depot, because this wood is a lot cheaper than metal, wasting metal. So trim this down, threw one of the U-joints on it, and was kind of playing with, you know, where it should land. And if I put it all the way down to the bottom down here, it should be right at a 35 degree angle, and I think the top one will be right at around a 30 to 35, which should be perfect, really. So before I cut that, I'm going to throw the seat in just to make sure that my feet do clear and, like, you know, feel good. I'm not squished, which I shouldn't, because before I almost had too much leg room. And yeah, and then I'll start messing with the U-joints again, but I think I'll end up having to cut it and use a weld-on U-joint. And then luckily that'll just mean I'm using two U-joints, one at the column and one at the rack, which minimizes having to, you know, put a bearing or anything in a firewall and, you know, stabilize that third or middle U-joint. So yeah, I'm gonna get to work. So I kind of am getting this figured out. I taped that U-joint at 35 degrees just so I didn't go over, and put it down about where it would go if I shortened up this a little bit, and then have the column just held in there and right down there. And it's starting to get there. I need Mike to get in here, somebody else, so I can tape that and then measure all the angles and figure out where it needs to be. See if I can maybe pull, the column needs to come back, like, or towards the front more, but again, that would mean I need to shorten the rod and stuff. So I'm just gonna see what he thinks, and if I'm good to go, probably cut that at like 1.5 inches up, put a U-joint on there, and then try to see or put the column where it needs to be, and then I can always shorten the column up more if I need to and shorten up the rod or the wooden dowel. But yeah, it's starting to get there. It's gonna be tight. Mike and I chatted about it for a little bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the rack off and cut it, and then weld one of the U-joints onto it, and then I can go from there to figure out how I should run the shafts and all that. But no matter what, I have to cut it, have to take it off, so I'm gonna do that right now. So yeah, I'll show you that, show you cutting it, show you welding it on, or I won't be welding it because I want it to look nice, so I'll ask one of the guys in the shop to, stack some dimes on it, because I want it to look nice and I want it to hold. I'm taking all this super seriously and like taking my time with it, because steering is very important. It's my life at the end of the day. So I was having a hard time getting the outer tie rod end out of the spindle, out of the steering arm, and so grab this pickle fork, and I'm gonna see if it helps. But yeah, see if it works. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to cuss. But I got it. But there we go. So I'm back at the shop, and I have the steering rack setting here. Like I was saying, I need to trim this down. As you can see, it has a little ridge right here, and I should probably only cut it to, well, about an inch up from here, and then the U-joint will slip down and probably sit right out here, and I can lay a weld down on that. I don't want to go any closer because it'll start to melt the bearings and stuff that are in the rack. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, one other thing. I have this U-joint that needs to be drilled out because it's too small to slip over. So technically I need to drill it out to a 37/64, but I have a 9/16, so hopefully it'll be close enough. I can get in there with something and make it a little bigger. But hey, Kyle.
I'm not gonna say nothing because I'm just gonna get edited out.
No, you won't.
Cock.
I'll put this, okay, that'll get edited out. All right, so I got the inside all drilled down. I left a little bit of a lip just to see if this will even fit, and then if I need to go any more, I'll just go put it back in there. But looks good, straight, clean. Now I'm gonna start cutting this off. So I got this cut down and ground down. It's looking really good, but like I was saying before, I didn't have a drill bit big enough, so this in here is still just a little too tight to slip on over that. I mean, it's barely. So I'm gonna see what other drill bits we have, see if I can get down in there, or I'll take some sandpaper to this and try to knock it down some. I talked to Ferris, and he had mentioned that I should make a jig to hold the steering shaft or the steering column at the right angle, so then I can build off of that and I don't have to keep holding it up and stuff. So I got this piece of tube that's cut in half that will be like that and hose clamped around, but I need to find another piece that will go around halfway, around 1 5/8 that I'll weld this onto perpendicularly. So So I cut this one down, cut this one down. Now I'm gonna weld them just like that together to make that jig. So here it is on the steering column. I'm gonna have to trim down this side so that I can push this more towards the end of the column. But thanks, Ferris.
You're welcome.
Well, my phone decided to turn off when I was cutting down and putting this new shaft in. Cut a piece out of chromoly, stuck it in there. I'm gonna tack everything together and just see that if when I turn it, if anything binds, because that angle's a little close and that angle's a little bit off from what that is. They're supposed to be even or really close. They're about 5 degrees off or so. And that angle is just right at 35, and so I'm kind of nervous that that's gonna bind a little. So I'm gonna go ahead, tack everything together, just throwing little tacks on them so that, well, I know I have to take it back apart. So if I just do little tacks, I can just grind them off, cut them off, then be good. So I'm gonna get to tacking, and then fingers crossed, everything works like perfectly. So I guess we'll just have to see. Alright, so like I said yesterday, the steering column kind of bound a little bit, and so I am cutting it apart. I'm gonna move over the column about 1/4 of an inch. Don't want to go more than that though, because then it'll just feel weird kind of driving it. So I'm gonna show you guys cutting it apart, welding it back together, and hopefully it won't bind up. Well, I hate to say it, but I need to cut this back apart and add a U-joint. This angle is just way too harsh. It's sitting right at 37 degrees, which is 2 degrees over what a standard steering U-joint should be. So I'm going to go in there, cut, or have a little shaft like this, have another U-joint in there sitting like that so that it's not as harsh of an angle, and then also build a bracket to hold a support bearing that will go right in between the two U-joints. So I'm gonna get to cutting it apart, taking the chromoly shaft out, and then remocking everything up in wood, just so I don't keep cutting this expensive chromoly apart. So I'm gonna get to doing that. I'm sorry, this video is kind of long. It's a lot of me learning, and one goal that I have with this channel is to, well, my goal over all of YouTube is to teach, it's to motivate, it's to inspire people, especially younger people who might not be in the automotive space, to join in, to learn, to just have fun and do what makes you happy. So I hope you guys are learning something along with me, and yeah, I guess let's get to cutting this back apart and mocking everything else up. A paint stick as a support, which is about where that firewall bearing will go. I'm trying to make that U-joint angle match that one and match that one. So as of right now, that one's at 25, that one's at 25, or that one's at 25, that one's at 20. It's very close. I'm getting really happy with it, but I'm gonna tweak it a little bit more, see what Mike thinks, and this was a lot of learning. And then also I went through and welded these up, ground them down. I still have to fill a couple little pits with weld and then grind it down, but just making, this will be, a bar will go across here, and it'll be the top of the radiator support and things like that, and also have little tabs that come out to the grill. But making progress. I'm happy. So this might look a little weird because my back camera actually isn't working, so I'm having to film on my front. I've been dealing with issues with this phone for a while. I just really need to film on my actual camera, but I'm working on the steering, as you can tell. It's been a little bit since the last time I was able to film anything because my phone hasn't been working, but the original spherical bearing mount that I made isn't going to work, and I needed to make sure that the U-joint was in the same exact position, so I built this little stand to hold the U-joint to, and now I can make sure that all of the angles of the U-joints are all correct, and then I can go ahead and make a new mount for the spherical bearing that will work. I am using the front facing camera again, and I hate the way it looks. I don't know, but I got the steering all good with the wooden shafts. I got this mount all made. I added a piece down here that I'll show you in a second, but I'm now going to cut chromoly tubes that match these lengths, tack them all in, turn it, and hopefully it doesn't bind. Hopefully the shaft doesn't have any movement or weird things in it. And then from there, I will probably end the video and then do making the steering column mount a totally separate video, because I think how to properly mount a steering column is interesting and could be its own video. So who knows? All right, so I'm in the truck, and as you can tell, I can move all of this, turn the steering wheel, and everything moves. And it doesn't bind at all. It's not like how it used to be where it was a little stiff at some points. Now, it is a little like weird feeling, but it is a manual rack. I'm not used to manual racks, and the rack hasn't really been cycled a whole lot. You know, it sat for a while, but I can turn it. So now I have to, obviously, like if I'm sitting in the truck, I have to shorten the steering column quite a bit, probably like this much. Have the steering wheel be back here and then make mounts off of it, or make mounts to it. But like I said, that's gonna be a separate video. So I know this video was probably a little long and kind of went back and forth from messing stuff up to fixing it, things like that. But I hope you guys learned something about correctly doing steering in a race car. The things that I really learned that I thought were cool was that you want to make the U-joints be as similar in angle to each other as possible. So right now, mine are at 27, 25, and 23. It's a 2 degrees jump from the column all the way down to the rack. So it's not perfect, but it will be good enough for what I'm doing. Another thing is, you know, having that spherical bearing be on the shaft to hold up that intermediate U-joint, so you don't get any like wobble or anything in the steering. So like I said, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time on Working on the Love Truck.